The battle between Rimuru and Ivarage began with spectacular ferocity. Watching this, Guy offered his heartfelt praise. That bastard, he's gotten stronger again. Responding to this was Diablo, who had rushed to the scene after fulfilling his duties. Kufufufu, naturally. As expected of Rimuru-sama. I am overjoyed to see that he has grown this much. However, this is not all. Rimuru-sama and I are connected via the soul corridor, and it seems he is not yet getting serious. Perhaps he intends to give us a lesson. Ha. You're saying that isn't him being serious yet. For Rimuru, he was absolutely serious, but from Diablo's perspective, it was Nemepu disrespectful play, meaning he was underestimating the enemy and going easy on them. Just as the boastful Diablo was about to launch into a speech directed at the surprised Guy. It is only natural. If Rimuru-sama, who is a true god, were to get serious, it wouldn't end with mere play like that. The one who spoke up first like that was Feldway, who was supposed to be an enemy until just moments ago. Before anyone noticed, he had become a Rimuru believer on par with Diablo. This, too, was a strange turn of events. Guy looked at him with eyes that said, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" But Feldway paid it no mind. To Rimuru-sama, Ivarage is no enemy at all. Since he is holding back despite that, he must be showing us foolish ones an example, just as Diablo says. Oi, another idiot like Diablo just appeared, Guy thought, getting a headache. The senior idiot was now lecturing the newcomer idiot with a self-important air. Tisk. For someone like you to speak Rimuru-sama's name. Did you get permission? There is no doubt he is showing us an example, but that has nothing to do with you, does it? Aren't you getting angry about the wrong thing? He thought, but perhaps finding it too troublesome, he lost the will to retort. Instead, Ultima, who arrived late, shouted out. Or rather, what is this? Why is someone like Feldway talking about Rimuru-sama so high and mightily, leaving us out of it? It was a fair point. He was acting like an ally as if it were natural, but they hadn't completely reconciled yet. At the very least, an apology should come first. Now, this isn't the time for that. Let us discuss that matter after things have settled down. Tensura soothed them, but had the time and situation been different, she likely would have joined Ultima. He surrendered to Rimuru-sama, didn't he? In that case, I have no complaints. Only Carrera had the style of "if you become an ally, I forgive you." That decisiveness was the best among the demons. On the other hand, as for the other spectators. Well, Rimuru really is amazing, huh? As expected of my friend. I am closer to Rimuru. After all, we are sworn best friends, and I knew him first. Kuehahaha. If we are talking about that, I was first. Furthermore, since I am his sworn ally, know that no one can surpass our relationship. Shut up. I don't care about that. That's right. I'm more useful at work than master, so it's undeniable that I'm close to Rimuru. Realizing that Rimuru was likely to win, the atmosphere was bright. They each said whatever they pleased, and a boasting contest about who was most important to Rimuru was about to begin. Watching those exchanges from the side, Chloe whispered softly. Because the one Rimuru-san loves the most is me. She was the mature one for not participating in the pointless argument. Zelario and Ibarra also could not hide their surprise. Not to sound like Feldway, but that strength is abnormal. Indeed. I didn't think he would overwhelm Ivarage, who devoured Veldora-sama, like that. They knew Rimuru was strong, but they never expected this extent. Or rather, it was impossible to imagine. For them, the Star King Dragon Veldora was supreme. They had despaired upon witnessing him being eaten by Ivarage, but the current situation following that had gone past surprise and felt surreal. That is Rimuru. Cornu, seeing Rimuru for the first time, was astonished, but in the next instant, he received mandatory correction from Feldway, who was some distance away. It is Rimuru-sama. Know that if you make another disrespectful remark, even I, with my tolerance, will not forgive you. No one understood what part of him was tolerant. Still, it was clearly conveyed that when speaking about Rimuru, one should be extremely cautious. Dino and the others comforted Cornu, who was dejected after being scolded. Well, you'll understand eventually. Yeah. Feldway is annoying, but what he's saying isn't wrong. Rimuru-sama is the person who's going to become our employer, so you have to respect him too, okay? Cornu thought. What is this Rimuru? Why is such a newcomer acting so big while I wasn't looking? However, watching the way he fought, he began to feel foolish for worrying about it. The idea that strength is everything is wrong, but for Cornu and his kind, it was natural logic. If one wasn't strong, no one would follow. From the perspective of Cornu, who was bound by such common sense, Feldway was the ideal superior. He hadn't found it amusing that such a superior had come to worship a newcomer, but looking at Rimuru, he understood just how foolish she had been. Amazing. Rimuru, no, Rimuru-sama. Alright, I've decided. Starting today, I will also respect Rimuru-sama. It took no time at all for him to change his mind. Since time wasn't flowing, physically speaking, it was an instant. Benimaru and Zijin watched with expressions saying this was only natural. Our turn might not come. Indeed. This is not a battle in a realm we can reach. It was an exchange between two confidants who felt absolute trust in Rimuru. Glancing at them, Yuuki, who was a little distance away, thought, I must absolutely make sure never to antagonize Rimuru-san. He had long given up on the dream of world conquest, but Yuuki was not the type of person to suppress everything he wanted to do. If Jisoo were truly returned, he wanted to make it a country where Kigali could be queen, and they could live happily with their companions, but that was a separate matter. He was thinking of touring various parts of the world to broaden his horizons. Yuuki, who had thought to increase his companions and gain more influence there, saw Rimuru's danger and engraved in his heart that overdoing it was not good. It was a matter of not forgetting discretion. And so, the Majin lurks in the darkness, and will continue to maneuver behind the scenes. The one acting composed was Rudra. Standing beside Velgrynd, he was enjoying watching from a high vantage point. That Rimuru guy is quite something. Yes. I understand well because I was completely defeated, but that is something you must not antagonize. He's harmless if you don't anger him, but once he snaps, he's uncontrollable. Well, then it's fine. My dream of world unification seems about to be completed through economic domination anyway. Pushing myself here wouldn't yield good results, and besides, Masayuki admires Rimuru. Yes, that's right. They've built a good relationship. Then, that's fine. For Rudra, he had a mountain of things he wanted to say to Veldora, who was his sister's husband. However, it seemed that opportunity was lost. Having mostly resolved his lingering attachments to this world, Rudra began to think it was okay to return now. However, he was anxious about what would happen to the Masayuki left behind if he truly returned. He would likely be unable to adapt to the suspended world and freeze. Because he thought this, Rudra intended to watch this battle until the end. Velgrynd also noticed Rudra's feelings. It was a little lonely, but Masayuki was also Rudra, so there was no problem. More importantly, I don't think this is the end. Most likely, still. While watching the outcome of the battle, Velgrynd strove to recover her strength. On a battlefield, there is no telling how things might turn. Velgrynd did not neglect her vigilance so that she could respond to anything. And so, Velgrynd's worry hit the mark. Ivarage decided to stop holding back. I hate this guy. Even though I finally managed to become one with Veldora, why does he interfere? Taking the form of an adult was for the sake of enjoying the battle. Because it was too strong and boring, it had merely been fighting to match the opponent. It was what one would call restricted play. However, now, it was being pushed back by the enemy called Rimuru. No matter what it did, its attacks didn't work, and the attacks that hit were very painful. It wasn't physical pain, but the sensation of energy being whittled away was unpleasant. It even felt the possibility of defeat if it continued fighting like this. That was not fun at all. This isn't amusing, Ivarage thought. Kayaha. I'll crush you and eat you. As soon as it declared that, Ivarage's transformation into a monstrosity began. From a shape that could be called human, to the form of an indescribable evil dragon. And the battle reached its final phase. Things have gotten pretty bad, I thought, viewing the situation almost as if it were someone else's problem. Its form was no longer something that could simply be cut by a sword. Emotionally, I was ready to throw up my hands in defeat. My plan had been to chip away at its stamina little by little, devour its energy, and somehow manage to defeat it. But this was no longer the time for such leisurely tactics. Compared to when it was in human form, the energy contained in its cell fragments is lower. In exchange, however, its regeneration has become effortless. At this rate, even if I deal damage with the sword, its recovery speed will outpace me. It would have been great if we could have all cooperated to wipe it out with large-scale magic or some super ultimate secret technique, but under the current physical laws of the suspended world, magic won't activate, and emission-type attacks are practically impossible to fire. In other words, we're left with a steady contest of physical strength, which has also now become meaningless. What do I do? While agonizing over this, I sighed as I looked at the ever-changing Ivarage. The conclusion was that the only possibility of defeating it was to challenge it with numbers, and completely whittle down its energy. However, the danger in doing so is far too great. In a situation where not only resurrection magic but even healing magic cannot be activated, there are no safety measures. My intuition tells me this would result in massive casualties. If we make even the slightest mistake, it's likely the end. We'd be eaten, erased, and unable to ever regenerate or resurrect again. If only I had a technique with immense power or a means of attacking from a long distance, a safer and more effective conquest would be possible. There is a way. At a time like this, let us execute dragon species nucleation with full preparation. Oh, I forgot, but I did have that authority, didn't I? Wait, that implies. If it is the sword of Tempest, Elpis that you named, it will likely withstand a dragon core with ease. That's right. It means asking Veldora to dwell within my sword. If I use this, I can no longer employ the strategy of keeping Veldora as a safety device. But in exchange, I can exercise absolute power. I had kept it sealed out of fear, but given the situation, it couldn't be helped. I immediately spoke to Veldora. Veldora, can you lend me your power? When I said that, Veldora reacted with joy. Moo, is it my turn? He answered with an air of importance, but indeed, it was now exactly the time for the secret weapon. Exactly. Now is the very moment for Veldora, who has been kept hidden as the final line of defense and holds ultimate power, to take the stage. Kui ha 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 ha. Indeed it is. Rimuru, I have been waiting for this moment. Veldora readily agreed to my request. Alright then, let's do this immediately, or so I thought. Wait just a moment. My foolish brother alone is unreliable, is he not? Sister, what are you? Velgrynd suddenly volunteered to cooperate as well. Velgrynd is also capable of dragon species nucleation. Well, I suppose that's true. In Seal's case, it's scary because it looks like she just wants to collect data. Is it alright, Rudra? Yeah, grind. Masayuki can protect himself, so do as you like. I love you, Rudra. And of course, you too, Masayuki. Ahaha, I trust you too, Velgrynd-san. So, please help Rimuru-san. Oh my. Yufufu, I'm so happy. I love you, Masayuki. I'll do my best. While I was discussing things with Seal, the discussion on Velgrynd's side had already concluded. Masayuki had nonchalantly gotten used to the suspended world, and had already given permission for Velgrynd to join the battle. Since it was an act of goodwill for my sake, I decided to gratefully accept the help.